Okay, imagine picking up a book, seems like history, but it's about the future. Written way back, detailing this huge global war that almost happened. A fictional war, August 1985.
Right, a future history. And it's fascinating what insights a deep dive like that can give us, even now.
Totally. So that's our mission today. We're unpacking General Sir John Hackett's 1982 book, The Third World War, The Untold Story.
Yeah, it's this incredibly detailed picture of a fictional World War III starting August 1985.
And we want to pull out the key bits, right? What Hackett saw about alliances, about military readiness, the geopolitics. What happens when things get really close to the edge?
Exactly. And the book gives a really specific trigger. August 4th, 1985 is when it all properly kicks off.
But the spark was earlier?
A little earlier, yeah. Late July. A Soviet move into Yugoslavia, post-Tito Yugoslavia, and that leads to the first direct U.S.-Soviet clash.
And what Hackett seems to, well, really nail is how fast information spreads. Leaked footage.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He writes about electronic news gathering, ENG footage.
Yep.
An Italian cameraman, I think.
Yes, smuggled out footage from Slovenia showed U.S. guided weapons hitting Soviet tanks.
And suddenly it's undeniable. It's right there on Western TV screens. Washington tries to keep a lid on it, but nope.
Makes you think about today, that kind of visual proof just cutting through everything.
It really does. And the book then pivots. It goes into the human side, too. This Soviet lieutenant, Andrei Nekrasov.
Right. Tell us about him.
Well, he's called up for what they tell him are just exercises in Belarusia.
Okay.
But he finds himself training reservists, guys who aren't really soldiers, many from places like Uzbekistan, Tajikistan.
And the training is rough.
Apparently with live ammunition. And then his whole division gets moved secretly into Poland.
Wow, secretly. So the troops themselves might not even know what's really happening.
That's the implication. All while the official story, the propaganda, paints NATO as the bad guy, the aggressor.
So Nekrasov's caught in the middle. He sees the propaganda, maybe even admires the planning on some level, but...
Doubts. Big doubts. Especially about his own unit's readiness. It's a really human perspective on the machinery of war.
And that connects to the wider picture in the West, doesn't it? Hackett suggests the West wasn't exactly united.
Not at all. He talks about this uncritical hankering for peace in Europe after World War II.
A desire for peace, which sounds good, but Hackett argues the Soviets exploited it.
Yeah, through, peace movements.
Mm-hmm.
He uses that old Leninist phrase, useful fools, suggesting these movements ended up painting the U.S. as the villain and weakening Western defense efforts.
Useful fools, that's quite a statement in the book. It feels very relevant, this idea of internal divisions being leveraged. Does he go deep into how?
He presents it more as a consequence, a factor that weakened resolve. And this internal tension, it definitely played out in defense debates.
Yeah.
Especially around nukes.
The theater nuclear forces, right? TNFs.
Act like Soviet SS-20s, NATO, putting in Pershing Dulles, cruise missiles, huge public fear of nuclear war, constant arguments, even with things like the START Treaty trying to dial it back.
And the U.S. was pushing Europe to do more on the conventional side, like take up the slack.
Yes, especially if U.S. forces got pulled away somewhere else. And initially, Europe was hesitant. Partly different views on, say, the Middle East.
But something shifted.
According to Hackett, yeah. A bit of an ironic twist. Israeli actions, annexing the Golan, canceling a deal with the U.S., actually reduced some of that friction between the U.S. and Europe.
So weirdly, that made Europe more willing to boost its own conventional defenses for the European theater.
It seemed to align their immediate strategic interests more clearly, yes. Less disagreement over other regions meant more focus on the shared European threat.
So pulling it together, what's Hackett's final verdict on Western readiness back then?
His conclusion is pretty stark. He says the West just got by. They'd cut it fine on conventional defense in the years leading up.
Meaning they almost backed themselves into a corner, having to rely on nuclear weapons because the conventional side wasn't strong enough.
That's exactly the danger he highlights. NATO had good tech, sure. M1 Abrams, Leopard 2 tanks, sophisticated stuff.
But not enough of them, compared to Soviet numbers.
Right. Soviets had vast numbers of tanks. Simpler, maybe less reliable, but sheer mass. Plus, Hackett points out NATO air defense weaknesses.
While the Soviets had strong chemical warfare capabilities.
Very strong. So you see this imbalance. It pushes NATO closer to that nuclear threshold just because the conventional options felt insufficient. It's a chilling point about deterrence.
It really is. So this whole dive into a war that didn't happen, it throws up so much about how Public opinion, alliance politics, even one soldier's view, it all feeds into these huge global moments.
Absolutely.
And it leaves you, the listener, with a big question, doesn't it? How do societies walk that tightrope between wanting peace, needing peace, but also maintaining a credible defense, especially with disinformation, internal splits?
And for me, what really stands out is Hackett showing that real strength, real preparedness, it isn't just about the weapons, it's about social resilience, alliance unity.
So what does this untold story from a fictional past war teach us about being prepared, about alliances right now? Something to think about.